Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to be talking about alternative rock today.
Right.
And I think the first thing we need to do is just define that word, alternative. What does that even mean?
Well, it really means an alternative to something.
To what was on the radio?
Exactly. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, commercial radio was all, you know, very polished pop music, very corporate rock,
Super slick.
very slick. So this was a choice for listeners who were just tired of it. They wanted something that felt a little more real.
So our mission here is to track how that idea, that feeling, went from these tiny, low-budget bands to just completely taking over the world.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And it really does start with that idea of rejection.
Rejecting the mainstream sound.
Rejecting the sound, the big budgets, the whole corporate machine. These artists were intentionally making music that was the opposite of what was popular.
And that started with how the music was even made, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The budget was a huge part of the identity. These were small, independent labels. Sometimes bands were just pressing their own records
Wow, really DIY.
completely. And that lack of corporate money meant they had total creative freedom. It was a true grassroots thing happening in places like Athens, Georgia, and across the ocean in Manchester, England, all at the same time.
So if they weren't trying to sound like the stuff on the radio, what were their influences? Where did this new sound come from?
They were looking back,
Yeah.
mostly. They took the raw energy of punk rock.
That fast, kind of aggressive sound?
Yep, but they mixed it with the more experimental, moody sound of post-punk bands. So it wasn't just fast and loud, it could also be atmospheric and dark.
And the lyrics were different too.
Oh, totally. They were writing about personal struggles, social issues, feeling like an outsider.
Stuff that actually felt real.
Exactly.
And-
And because of that, you wouldn't hear it on the big radio stations. It was mostly played on college radio stations.
Which is where it got its first name.
That's right.
Okay, let's get into the sound itself, because it's a huge category, but there are some key things that tie it all together. You've got the classic band setup, right? Singer, guitar, bass, drums, but the electric guitar is kind of the main character.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And specifically, the sound of a distorted electric guitar.
Let's break that down. What is distortion? When we say that fuzzy, gritty sound, what's actually happening?
So in simple terms, you're pushing the signal from the guitar so hard that it starts to break up. It clips the sound wave.
So it's like turning the volume up too high on a speaker until it gets crunchy.
That's a great way to think about it. It creates this raw texture. It's not clean. And that texture can carry a lot of emotion, frustration, anger, intensity,
Right, and it also lets him break the rules of songwriting.
for sure. You hear weird chord changes, song structures that don't follow the typical verse, chorus, verse pattern,
But the biggest trick, the one everyone knows, is that quiet, loud thing.
the dynamic shift. Yeah, that's a huge signature of the genre.
So the verses will be really quiet. Maybe the singer is almost whispering.
Clean guitar, gentle drums.
And then the chorus just explodes. The guitars get super distorted. The drummer is hitting as hard as they can. And the singer is basically shouting.
That contrast is so powerful, it really pulls the listener in. It was a key part of what made the sound so successful later on.
And that success started small, right? You mentioned college radio.
It did. In the 1980s, university radio stations were everything. They were run by students, they weren't owned by big companies, so they had total freedom.
They could play whatever they thought was interesting.
And that's why the music was first called college rock. It's where it found its first real audience.
Is there a band that's a good example of how that worked?
I mean, the classic example is REM. They really wrote the playbook for how to succeed as an independent band in the U.S.
Oh, so
They just got in a small van and toured constantly. They played every college town you can imagine, building up a fan base one show at a time.
so no big ad campaigns?
No, just word of mouth.
Yeah.
And they proved that you could have a career without being a huge pop star.
Their sound was a bit different, too. A lot of that jangle guitar sound.
Yeah, that's a great point. That bright, shimmering guitar tone. It's the opposite of heavy metal. It sounds thoughtful, melodic.
So that entire model, that slow, steady, independent way of doing things.
It was about to get completely blown up.
Yeah. The early 1990s changed everything.
Everything.
And we're talking about one specific subgenre that came out of one specific city.
Seattle, Washington.
Grunge.
Grunge. It took that raw punk attitude and mixed it with the slow, heavy sound of metal. The result was just immense.
And the look was just as important as the sound, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The flannel shirts, the work boots, ripped jeans. It wasn't a fashion statement from a stylist.
It was just what you wore in the Pacific Northwest because it's cold and rainy.
Exactly. It was practical. It was anti-glamour, which, of course, became incredibly glamorous all over the world.
It all changed with one song, really. When Smells Like Teen Spirit hit, that was the moment.
That was the moment. The entire music industry just flipped upside down almost overnight.
Alternative wasn't really alternative anymore.
Not commercially, no. It was suddenly the biggest thing on the planet. Record labels were scrambling, signing any band that looked like they owned a flannel shirt.
And the cultural impact was just massive. It pretty much killed off the hair metal era.
It did. It showed that young listeners wanted music that was honest, that talked about real problems like anxiety and feeling lost, not just parties and cars.
Now, while all this was happening in the US, something similar but very different was going on in the UK,
Right. Britpop.
which was not dark and gritty at all.
No, it was the opposite in many ways. It was brighter, more melodic. It was all about celebrating British culture, looking back to bands from the 60s like the Beatles or the Kinks.
And it was famous for those big rivalries.
Oh, the media loved it.
Yeah.
The big one was Oasis versus Blur. The press treated it like a heavyweight boxing match.
So this all brings us to a word we hear all the time now. Indie. Indie rock. What did that originally mean?
Originally, indie was just a business term. It meant you were on an independent record label, not one of the big major corporations.
And the whole point of that was creative control.
Total creative control. You didn't have a record executive telling you to sound more commercial. This led to that whole DIY, do-it-yourself philosophy.
So bands were recording in their basements or garages.
Exactly. Using whatever gear they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
That raw, maybe slightly unpolished sound became part of the aesthetic. It was a badge of honor.
And they could make a living that way just by touring and selling their own merchandise.
They could. The whole idea was small scale, but you're in complete control of your art.
But even with that DIY spirit, technology has become a huge part of the sound now.
Oh, for sure. The core is still often that four-piece band, but the sounds they can make have expanded so much.
You hear a lot more synthesizers, electronic drum beats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the guitar is almost never just a guitar anymore. You have this whole world of pedals and effects units.
Little boxes on the floor that can make the guitar sound,
Right.
well, totally unrecognizable.
They can create huge, echoing landscapes or weird metallic textures
And on stage now, you often see laptops, right?
all the time. They're used to trigger samples or play atmospheric sounds. It really blurs the line between a rock band and electronic music.
Technology also changed how we saw the bands.
It did.
Yeah.
In the 90s, music television was huge, and alternative bands made these really artistic, sometimes strange, low-budget videos.
They look like little indie films.
Exactly. They were rejecting that glossy, perfect look of pop videos. It made the artists feel more relatable, more authentic.
And the other huge piece of the puzzle is the live show, specifically music festivals.
Festivals like Lollapalooza,
Yeah.
they were literally created to showcase these non-mainstream bands.
And going to a festival is almost like a rite of passage for fans now.
It is. You get to see dozens of bands in one weekend, and it builds this incredible sense of community.
And for the bands themselves, playing a big festival can change everything.
It's the main way an underground band can get seen by a huge global audience. And honestly, in the age of streaming, festivals are often how bands make most of their money.
So if we pull back and look at the whole picture, what is the lasting impact of all this?
I think it's that alternative rock created a platform, a space to talk about difficult things.
Like mental health or environmental issues or just the pressure of growing up.
Exactly. The honesty in the songwriting makes listeners feel like they're not alone in what they're feeling.
It's also just a massive celebration of being an individual, isn't it?
Fundamentally, yes. It's permission to be yourself, to reject the idea that you have to fit into some perfect mold. It's a rebellion against the more superficial parts of pop culture.
And now it's a global thing. It's not just the US and the UK anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
There are huge, thriving scenes in Japan, Brazil, Germany. Bands are taking the sound and mixing it with their own local culture. The internet lets a band from a small town find fans on the other side of the world instantly.
And the sound itself just keeps changing.
It has to. It's always adapting, blurring the lines with hip-hop or electronic music. The definition of alternative is always moving.
Because as long as there are young people who feel a little different and have something they want to say,
There will always be a need for this kind of music. It'll just keep reinventing itself.
So it's a history built on distortion, honesty, and fighting for your own creative voice.
Right. But that leads to a final question. Since the whole point of alternative is to push against whatever is mainstream, what does that mean today?
What's the new sound that's pushing back?
Exactly. What music are you listening to that feels like the new alternative? Some to think about.
Definitely. Keep searching for that sound. We'll see you next time.